This is exactly how I would invest in Section 8 if I had to restart from today. Over the last 4 years, I have built a Section 8 portfolio that is worth $1.9 million, and I consistently make over $30K a month in guaranteed rents. And in this video, I'm breaking down the exact playbook you need to follow. I'm a licensed realtor, an active investor, and I've been through all of the headaches already so you don't have to. You're going to learn where I'd buy, how much money you really need, the mistakes I'd avoided, and how to scale this into real financial freedom. Let's get to it. So what would I do first if I had to start over? I'd go straight to the Midwest. That's where all of the deals are. And where in the Midwest? Well, I'm a fan of Detroit, Cleveland, Toledo, Dayton. Those are up more north, and I would go for those in the spring/summertime. And then when it gets colder, go a little bit more south, go to the Birmingham, Macon, and St. Louis areas. So here is the play. You're going to buy homes for 75 to 85K. And put in some light rehab. Those typically need about 5K, maybe 10K in rehab. Or go for the 90, 95, 100K homes that are turnkey. And then cross-check everything with the Section 8 inspection checklist, which is just publicly available online. Or follow my 4-page checklist that is so much easier to read in my opinion that I give to my mentorship students. And once rehabbed, rent them out to HUD tenants for an average of about $1,300 to $1,400 every single month. So that's the entire model. Low purchase price, high cash flow, and guaranteed rent. And throughout this strategy, I'm not chasing appreciation. I'm chasing a monthly income so I can repeat it over and over and over again and really scale. That is really where Section 8 shines. Now let me show you guys a completely free resource that is fantastic for finding cities. So this is investorlift.com. It is free to make an account. Only make the free account. I don't recommend the paid one. So this site is basically a wholesaling site, which I personally don't like. I don't like wholesalers. However, I do think that this heat map they made is fantastic. So what I like to do is I like to put in my price. So let's say you're looking for homes that are at a maximum of $100,000. Going to apply that. You're only looking at single family homes only. And let's say at least 2 bedrooms. And let's go ahead and see all of the hotspots on the map. So everything in red is a super high hotspot, basically a lot of investor activity there. Everything in orange is medium investor activity, so still good areas. And everything in yellow is low activity, which I don't recommend going in any yellow areas. So let's go to the orange ones and the red ones. So if we zoom in a little bit, you'll notice that there's pretty much nothing in the west. It's all in the Midwest or just south in general. So we can see that Detroit is a huge one. That looks like Akron/Cleveland. Where else do we see some in Illinois? It looks like St. Louis is a huge one. Jacksonville a little bit. San Antonio, and what is that one? Houston? Yeah, and Birmingham, Alabama. So those are all great areas to go for, and I do highly recommend pretty much all of those cities. And obviously if your terms are a little bit different, for example, let's say that you're going for 200K homes, then you're gonna get some different locations. So St. Louis blew up there, Orlando seems to be huge, Houston's really big there, some places in Oklahoma, Chicago is a massive place too, Indianapolis. So you get the point. Now, once you actually find the city itself, so let's say that, throughout this strategy, I really like San Antonio. Now you have to go onto Zillow. So we're going to type in San Antonio and let's go ahead and see the results. So we mentioned up to 100K, and this is kind of the second part of it, which is almost like an inventory check where you're looking, okay, if I put in only homes, at least 2 beds, up to 100K, how many homes are there? Well, 100, which sounds great on paper, but then you look a little bit closer and you realize all the homes that are under 100 are in terrible condition, like this. This is going to be a really good BRRRR, but it's terrible for a turnkey home. It's just a mess. And you'll notice that for pretty much any home that's under 100. Yeah, same with this one. This one might have some nice parts, but there obviously still needs to be a lot of work here. So that tells me that, okay, I'll probably have to increase the price to maybe 150 to 200K if I actually want to find some homes that are truly turnkey in this price range. For example, this one is 150 and this looks fantastic. So if my price range went up to 150, I'd love San Antonio. And let's pick somewhere else. Let's say Detroit, for example. Detroit had a lot of inventory and the homes are turnkey for the prices that we want. For example, 80K, I mentioned there's probably going to need to be about 5K in rehab. So sounds great, but also keep in mind, I said in the more northern states, I don't like to go for them in the middle of late fall to winter. And by the time you get into this, it's September. It'd probably be October by the time you start touring. So I think you get the point. Moving on, I know that the first question everybody has is how much do I need to get started? And here's the complete truth. You can technically start with as little as 3% down for a conventional loan. But the catch is you have to live in that house for at least 1 year. And most new investors don't want to pack up and move to the Midwest. So realistically, if you don't want to pack up everything and leave, then you need to have $25,000 saved up. With $25K, that'll be 20% down on a home that's, let's say, $80,000. It'll also cover your closing costs and handle light repairs. That's it. Now, that sounds like a lot, but when you compare that to the average home in the US, which costs $400,000, just the down payment alone for that would be $80K. And after that, you'd still probably cash flow the same $500 a month that I am pulling on an $80,000 home. So the Section 8 strategy is one of the cheapest and safest ways to get into real estate with actual cash flow. Now let's run through a real live example. Let's go ahead and pick this home in Detroit. It is $85,000. Now, since this is an example, I'm fine with picking this for now. It is a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,100 square feet and looks to be turnkey, but we'll assume there's at least $5K in rehab. So this is my custom spreadsheet that I give out to all of my mentorship students, and it is basically a no fluff property calculator spreadsheet. So I'm going to insert this home into it. I'll just replace this home just for simplicity's sake. Okay, now let's go ahead and run some numbers. So 85K purchase price, 85,000. 20% down, 7.5 interest rate. That's about normal in today's market for a DSCR loan specifically. With 5,000 in renovations, that would put your ARV up to 90,000 on a safe end. 2% appreciation, and the rents, I just simply know the rents in this area is about $1,400 per home. Obviously, I could do a full-on comp, but it's gonna be about 14. Assuming I do hire property management, 5% vacancy, 15% for repairs, and then insurance and taxes seem about average. Let's actually up the taxes to a little bit higher. And we can see down here, the initial investment to get into this home is $29,000. Now I know I said 25. Well, it's because we actually get a lot of the times the sellers to cover a lot of the repairs and some closing costs. So on average, we get about $2,000 in a seller subsidy for closing costs. And on top of that, they tend to cover a little bit of the repairs too, meaning this 29 realistically is somewhere between 25 and 27. Now let me tell you the mistakes that I made so that you can avoid them. First off, cold weather kills cash flow. I've mentioned it a little bit so far, but let me go into a little bit more in depth. So if you're buying in the northern cities like Cleveland or Detroit, expect to struggle during the winter. And the reason is because the vacancies are higher and it's just harder to fill units when it's freezing cold outside, it's snowing, it's hard to even walk yourself, let alone carry a couch. So yes, expect a little bit more vacancy during the winter months. Second, get vacancy insurance. It covers you if your property sits empty for more than 30 days. Now, admittedly, with good advertising and good timing, we rent our properties within 2 weeks. So this typically is never an issue. However, if you're doing a burr, for example, where it needs a lot of rehab, or it's just poor timing for you, then get vacancy insurance. It's not a crazy price. It is more expensive, but it will save you a ton of stress. Plus, keep in mind that you only need it for as long as the property sits empty. As soon as you get a tenant to sign a lease and move in, you can swap it to regular insurance again. Third is you should install cameras the day you close. Not after the rehab is done, not after you rent it out, literally day one. Security is not negotiable here. What I typically do is I buy the cheapest Wi-Fi plan in the area. It's usually about $30 to $40 a month. And obviously we only need it for about 2 weeks. We're going to buy security camera signs. These are the ones that I personally buy. We put them in the front lawn. It is super, super cheap. You can actually see that I ordered it about a year ago. And then I also have bought these cameras. You can see I bought these multiple times now, the 2-pack. They're the Wise cameras. They just connect wirelessly to a Wi-Fi network nearby and it streams directly to your phone. I have the membership, so everything saves to the cloud. And if it detects any movement, it instantly rings off sirens, alerts me, and you can even put in an option to call the cops automatically. Now, you don't specifically have to buy these specific cameras. In fact, I think the V4 has recently come out, so there's an upgraded model. But on top of that, every company has something like this. Amazon sells their own, Google sells their own, etc. But how do you actually install these if you don't live near the property? Well, we just have a handyman install everything. And finally, do not cut corners on your Section 8 checklist. Here is the Section 8 checklist. It is 19 pages long, and please do not skimp out on this. I know it's a hassle to read, but you really should be cross-checking everything on this checklist with your actual home. And again, I do offer a 4-page document that's much easier to read to all my mentorship students. And these are things that I wish I had known sooner that would have saved me thousands of dollars and saved probably 4 months worth of delays. Now, real quick, if this is clicking for you and you want to actually start building your Section 8 portfolio, I run a completely free school community where I do a weekly Section 8 masterclass. I answer questions, and you can connect with over 800 other investors doing the exact same thing as you. The link is in the description. Join us there, and let's get back to the video. A lot of people ask me, how do you make sure these Section 8 tenants will not destroy your property? And the truth is that tenant screening is everything here. And I don't care about the credit score, I care about the payment history. So here's my general process. Number 1, check their current employer if they have one. A lot of people on Section 8 don't, but if they do, check it. You also want to check past landlords and rental history. The way I do this is you can just call the landlord and keep it vague. Hey, how was their payment history, etc., etc. Don't say you're another landlord because then they might lie in order to get their tenant out. But a lot of times also, if it's a property management company, then it doesn't matter. They're going to be truthful, they're licensed, they kind of have to tell you. Or even if it's a regular landlord, you can simply ask for proof of payment history. I also like to ask for the utility payment history as well, because if they don't pay utilities, then that puts a lien against your property that you have to deal with. And finally, we do an at-home interview. Go see where they live right now. And I know that seems a little bit weird, but what you're going to do is you're just going to call them and say, hey, John Doe, you are one of the last 2 applicants for 123 Main Street that we're considering. It is between you and one other person. We'd like to do an at-home interview. Could you perhaps let us in sometime today? So I always like to do it literally the same day, if not maybe 1 day later. So that way they don't have time to really clean up after themselves or hide any major flaws that they've created. So you're going to show up or have a handyman or a property manager, check out their car, see if it's like filthy, dirty, or if it's just a little rusted and old, which is okay. Same with the house. Is there laundry everywhere? Is there soda spills everywhere? Is the drywall having clear fist marks through it? Then that's probably a bad indication of how they treat their property. However, if it is generally distressed but still fine, that's probably the landlord's fault and is a good indication that they're going to treat your property with respect. And most landlords get burned because they're desperate and skip these steps. Don't do that. Now let me explain why Section 8 is better than regular rentals. First, the rent is guaranteed. HUD pays you directly. And I have never gotten a missed payment. Even during COVID, there was still landlords getting paid. Whereas all the free market landlords were essentially stuck with rent freezes. Second, it usually pays about 20% higher than market rent. People don't realize this, that Section 8 will on average just pay more simply because a lot of their calculation is based on bedroom count, but also because Section 8 landlords know that most, if not all of the rent is paid by the government, so a lot of people artificially inflate the market rents. And third, you can actually request a rent increase every single year, typically between 3 to 5%. Now, this is actually a little bit negotiable. You need to have real comps of homes in your area that are going for the 3 to 5% higher so that you can justify the rent increase. So while everybody else is chasing tenants on Zillow, I am sitting back and collecting government guaranteed deposits. So let me go ahead and show you an example of what I mean by higher rents. So this home itself is going for, let's see, in this zip code, 48205 for a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,100 square feet. Let's see how much it could rent free market. So a 3-bed in this zip code, at least 2 bathrooms. It is going for 1120. This one's 15, but it's been sitting on market for a while, so I don't trust that. 13, 1245, 13. This one's sitting on the market. I don't count that one. This one's been sitting almost a year, 14. Okay. So it seems like around 11 to 13. Now let's go ahead and check affordable housing which is basically Zillow but for Section 8. And let's see the exact same type of home. So single family, at least a 3-bed, at least 2 bathrooms. There's only 2 rentals. So it's 1550, 1450, and 1350. In fact, this 1350 one is actually a waiting list because it seems like they already have and are processing an application. So you can see it's a little bit higher than regular market rents. And if you remember correctly, I said I think this would go for 1400 based on my experience. Looks like I was just about right. Now let me give you another real example, this time with someone that we actually know. Daniel joined my mentorship not that long ago. He ended up buying a home in Detroit for $84,000 and put in $5,000 in light rehab. It mainly was painting, a little bit of sloping flooring, and fixing some rotted subflooring. And by the way, he ended up actually getting $1,000 more from the sellers because we negotiated that. So realistically it was $4K. The actual rehab took 2 days, and then he rented it out to a Section 8 tenant for $1,400 a month. And honestly, it looked pretty similar to the home that we used for this example. So after expenses, he clears over $500 net on his very first deal. And that is the power of this strategy. It is super simple and it works for anyone disciplined enough to do it. But now that you know how I would invest in Section 8 if I had to start over, you need to actually learn my step-by-step system that will not only get you your first home, but help you build a massive passive income portfolio through Section 8 rentals. So if you're ready to start buying cash flowing Section 8 rentals immediately, check out this next video on screen where I'll show you what you'll learn, how to get started, and how to use this information to not just buy one home, but to grow to over $1 million portfolio just like I did. As always, I am Joseph Khateri. Have a nice day.